Alright, so these are going to be the notes for area and circumference of circles. Now, we have been doing area and perimeter, and this test is called the area and perimeter test, and that's only because circumference is really just the perimeter of a circle. The circumference just means the distance around the outside of a circle. So it's the same thing, we just call it circumference because perimeter, the technical definition is just of polygons, and we know that a circle is not a polygon because it has curves. So we call it circumference, but it means the same thing. Now again, you don't need to memorize these formulas, you just have to know how to use them. And the area and the circumference formula are very similar to one another, so it's easy to get them mixed up. But the area formula is pi r squared, and the circumference formula is 2 pi r. So this one is pi times r, and this one is 2 times pi times r. Okay, now just like on the keystones, you can use the pi button on your calculator or 3.14, and I will accept either answer. Really, sometimes it's only off by a tenth, if anything, but you can use either one. And if you're unsure where the pi button is on the yellow calculators from the wall, just ask me and I'll show you where it is. There's also a square button on your scientific calculator and on the yellow calculators where you can just hit the square button instead of taking r times r when you plug it in. One other thing to know, and I'm sure you've learned this before, but remember radius is half of a circle, so it's from the center out, and a diameter is the whole way across the circle. So the center would be somewhere here, and the diameter goes straight through. It would be like 2 radius. So the diameter is twice as big as a radius would be. So, first one, they give you the radius, so all you have to do is plug into the calculator. So to find the area, it would be pi times 9.2 squared. And for all of these, while I'm going through the notes, these are all using calculator pi. So I'm not using 3.14, I'm actually pushing the pi button, and it is doing the entire decimal. So if yours is off by a tenth, that's okay. You probably just use calculator. You probably use 3.14. So when I multiply this all out, I get 265.9044022, and it keeps going forever. But remember, all of our answers in this section we're going to round to 1 decimal place. So that's 265.9. It's still area, so the units are still going to be squared, just like with rectangles, just like with triangles. But we're just going to 1 decimal place. And actually, I did put them each in again with 3.14 instead of calculator pi. If you use 3.14 here, your answer is going to be 265.8 instead of 265.9. That's if you use 3.14, and this one is if you use the pi button. Now for circumference, we're just going to take 2 pi times 9.2, plug all that in, and you get 57.80530 and so forth. And again, we're just going to round to 1 decimal place. And inches work the same way as perimeter. We're not going to square them. It's just normal inches. And this one, if you used 3.14, it would be the same answer. There's no difference. Now in this circle, they gave us the length of the diameter instead of the length of the radius. So if the diameter is 20 inches, that just means my radius is going to be 10 inches. That's all. You just divide by 2. So my area is going to be pi times 10 squared, and my circumference is going to be 2 times pi times 10. Oops, there we go. And so my area ends up being, when I round it, 314.2, and my circumference is going to be 62.8. And again, that's rounding to 1 decimal place. Now, if you use 3.14 instead of calculator pi, this circumference is still 62.8, but this would be exactly 314. So that's if you used 3.14 instead of the calculator pi. Now, here they don't give you a picture, they just describe it to you, and the radius is 12 7/8. So remember, to turn this into a decimal, we're going to divide 7 divided by 8, and that gives us 12.875. Now, I'm not going to round that. You're only going to round your final answers. That 12.875 is what I'm going to plug into the calculator. So pi times 12.875 squared, that's going to give me my area. And that is 520.7680. So rounded, that's going to be 520.8 square meters. And for circumference, that'll be 2 times pi times 12.875. And when you plug that in, you get 80.8960. So we'll round that to 80.9. And the last one here asks you to use a ruler. Now, this is a little bit tricky with circles, but what you want to do is just find the diameter. It's too hard to figure. I mean, I'm sure we could eye it up and say, that's about the center to figure out what a radius is, but it's much easier to just measure straight across. So just measure your diameter, and I got that it should be about 5.2 centimeters. And again, you get a little bit of leeway there, so if you had 5.1 or 5.3, you're still okay. And then to find our radius, you would just divide that in half. So that's going to be 2.6 centimeters for our radius. And again, we'll plug into pi times 2.6 squared to get my area, and plug into 2 pi times 2.6, 2 pi r to get my circumference. After rounding, your area ends up being 21.2. And your circumference ends up being 16.3. So for circles, just remember that circumference means the same thing as perimeter. The R in the formula stands for radius, which would be half the diameter, which would be the whole way across. And you can use either calculator pi or 3.14 because the answers are very similar to one another. If you have any questions on this, feel free to watch this again, complete the notes, or ask me questions to clarify or help you understand anything.